Hey, boys and girls, it's Miss Sweeney. We're going to go ahead and get started today with When I Was Young in the Mountains by Cynthia Rylant, setting lesson. Okay, so let's begin. Before we get started today, you're going to need your reading notebook and a pencil. You may even want your crayons too. So reading notebook, pencil, and maybe even your crayons if you would like them. You can pause the video at this time and go get those materials together. When you're done, you can come back and resume the video. First, let's listen to the story, When I Was Young in the Mountains by Cynthia Rylant.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
When I Was Young in the Mountains by Cynthia Rylant, illustrated by Diane Good. When I was young in the mountains, Grandfather came home in the evening, covered with the black dust of a coal mine. Only his lips were clean, and he used them to kiss the top of my head. When I was young in the mountains, Grandmother spread the table with hot cornbread, pinto beans, and fried okra. Later in the middle of the night, she walked through the grass with me to the Johnny house and held my hand in the dark. I promised never to eat more than one serving of okra again. When I was young in the mountains, we walked across the cow pasture and through the woods carrying our towels. The swimming hole was dark and muddy, and we sometimes saw snakes, but we jumped in anyway. On our way home, we stopped at Mr. Crawford's for a mound of white butter. Mr. Crawford and Mrs. Crawford looked alike and always smelled of sweet milk. When I was young in the mountains, we pumped pails of water from the well at the bottom of the hill and heated the water to fill round tin tubs for our baths. Afterward, we stood in front of the old black stove, shivering and giggling, while Grandmother heated cocoa on top. When I was young in the mountains, we went to church in the schoolhouse on Sundays, and sometimes walked with the congregation through the cow pasture to the dark swimming hole for baptisms. My cousin Peter was laid back into the water, and his white shirt stuck to him, and my grandmother cried. When I was young in the mountains, we listened to frogs sing at dusk and awoke to cowbells outside our windows. Sometimes a black snake came in the yard, and my grandmother would threaten it with a hoe. If it did not leave, she used the hoe to kill it. 4 of us once draped a very long snake, dead of course, across our necks for a photograph. When I was young in the mountains, we sat on the porch swing in the evenings, and Grandfather sharpened my pencils with his pocket knife. Grandmother sometimes shelled beans and sometimes braided my hair. The dogs lay around us, and the stars sparkled in the sky. A bobwhite whistled in the forest. Bob, Bob, Bobwhite! When I was young in the mountains, I never wanted to go to the ocean, and I never wanted to go to the desert. I never wanted to go anywhere else in the world, for I was in the mountains, and that was always enough. Hi, everyone.
Okay, so now that the story has been read to us, let's talk a little bit about setting. So setting is the where and when the story takes place. It could be near a pond, in the hills, close to coal mines. It could be the time of day, Or it could be the time period. For example, a long time ago, or maybe even in the future. Importance of setting. The setting is important because it impacts the characters and the plot of the story. So, like what happens in the story. Characters have different experiences based on where and when they live, just like us. So now, you're going to open up your reading notebook to your next clean page. And what I want you to do is I want you to make your reading notebook look just like Miss Sweeney's. I want the date 9-16-20 at the top. I want you to write the word setting. Then I want you to write where I live with some dots, but leave some space. Then write where they lived, but leave some space. Then write when I live, but leave some space. And then write when they lived and leave some space. All right, so if you need to pause the video at this time to make your paper in your reading notebook look like Miss Sweeney's, you may go ahead and pause the video at this time and go ahead and set up your paper to look exactly like mine. I'm going to resume the video so you can come back when you are ready and continue. So let's start with the first section of setting, and let's think about where you live. So where you see on your paper it says where I live, that's where you live. So I want you to think about your home or your city or your neighborhood, and I want you to draw a picture here in this blank area, and I want you to label on that picture. For example, your house, you would draw a line and write the word house after you draw your picture. Or maybe you draw, your front yard with your picture. You could draw a line to describe that's your front yard and label it. So I want you to go ahead and think about where you live, your home, your city, your neighborhood, and I want you to draw a picture of that here under where I live and label each part. You can stop the video at this time and resume to go to the next step. The second section, I want you to think about where they lived in the book. Mountains, log cabin, alone, really from a lot of other people. I want you to draw a picture here under where they lived. Our characters in the book when I was young in the mountains. And I want you to draw the setting. What did the setting look like where they lived? Mountains, log cabin, alone from others. I want you to draw and label those parts as well. You can stop the video at this time and then resume when you're ready to move on. Now we're going to move to the third section, and I want you to think about when you live. So when I live, what year is it? What kinds of things can we do for fun? What kinds of activities do we participate in? I want you to write down some of those things here, or you could even draw some out if you wanted to. But I want you to think about what it's like to live in this time and age that we live in, the year we live in, and the things that we do for fun and the activities we participate in. You can draw or write here in this section. And stop the video if you need to, and then resume when you're ready. And then the last slide. I want you in the last section to think about when they lived, the people in the book when I was young in the mountains. Think about when they lived. What year was it? What did they do for fun? Well, what activities did they participate in? And I want you to illustrate that here. So for example, we know that they hung out outside a lot. They took care of the animals and they helped chop wood. They enjoyed going into town when they could. So I want you to think about those things here, and I want you to write them down. And also, this book happened a long time ago. You can stop the video at this time, and when you're ready, you can resume. So now that you have all 4 sections done, you can really see how the setting or when and where a story takes place really changes the experiences that the characters go through. Like you, the things that you go through in the places you live are a lot different than what they had and what they experienced in the book when I was young in the mountains. It would look a lot different. So the way that the setting is described in a book is really important to the experiences and the plot of the characters that are in the book. All right, guys, you're going to have an activity that you're going to do in Kami today. in Schoology, so I want you to make sure that you get on and you check that out. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.